What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron, and we got a lot to talk about on today's show. Let's get right into it. Obviously, the big news that we heard from yesterday is Coach Tom Thibodeau is no longer the head coach of the New York Knicks. Not overly surprised that this came about. He was obviously a very polarizing coach, right? Especially in the Knicks community. There was people who weren't too fond of him, and then there's people who, obviously, appreciated what he was able to do with this team, able to change the culture and do some really good things, in these 5 years as head coach. But obviously, a I guess disappointing end to the season when it, especially after, I think most people feel this way after Game Two, win over the Celtics, and then especially when Tatum went down, it was like, okay, there's a legit path to this Knicks team going to the NBA Finals, and obviously, we everyone's gonna bring up Game Five. Game One of the Eastern Conference Finals, and that being a moment that we really really blew. Essentially, we blew an opportunity to maybe get to that ultimate goal of getting to the finals, and that just wasn't the case. Uh, but still, a season in which we improved. We kept improving. Last year losing in the second round, and this year losing in the conference finals. Obviously, not what we wanted, but still a progression. But I think Knicks management, Leon Rose, felt differently, and they felt like they were capped out with Coach Thibodeau, and felt like change was needed. So they pivoted, and they pivoted to letting him go. And obviously, there's going to be speculations who will be the next head coach, and obviously, a former Knicks assistant in Johnny Bryant, who was one of the finalists for the Suns job, did not get the job. He did not get the job. The Suns wound up going with Cavs is another Cavs assistant in Jordan Ott, who who wound up I think it's pretty settled. I think it's confirmed that Jordan Ott will be the next head coach, which left a lot of fans wondering if that means that Johnny Bryant is now in line to be the next Knicks head coach. We've heard numerous names in consideration for potentially being the next head head man for the New York Knicks. But my gut is really telling me that it really feels like Johnny Bryant is the guy for the job and will be the next Knicks head coach. Now, that's just me. That's just a gut feeling, but it's a feeling that I think most people are feeling and sentiment with. So I think all signs kind of point towards there. Obviously, there's other names. There's been the Mike Budenholzer. There has been obviously Mike Malone, who was let go not too not too far before the NBA postseason started. So that was kind of still a head scratcher for some. But I always said he's always been kind of Thibs light. So to get someone who's kind of who's in the same mold as a coach you just let go for kind of the same reasons that he was let go in Denver, it does. I don't think they want to repeat that. So I don't think that's something that we will see happen. As much as he's an established coach, he's a championship level coach. Um, so we'll see. And there's Frank Vogel. I've heard. Mike Brown. There's also Jay Wright that has been discussed, which I don't think that's gonna happen. So there's definitely some names, but I truly believe that it's Johnny Bryant's job. Um, I think he's going to get the head man job, and he will be the next head coach of. I honestly would be kind of shocked if he's not the next head coach of the New York Knicks. Obviously, a lot of things can change. You know, maybe his plan is different. So we'll see. But other names you hear like Quinn from Miami, has been a name that he's definitely put in the time. The last it's been a while. He's been assistant with the Miami Heat. Obviously being part of that culture, you want to have people. You want to interview people who have been in good ecosystems, in good environments. Winning environments. Know how to develop players, and that's another thing too. Is are you going to get a coach that's going to develop players the way you wanted to? Because I truly felt like if we had developed the young players the way we probably should have, and the way we see these two teams that were in the NBA Finals, I think we have, maybe the Knicks are in the NBA Finals. And I think that's going to be big, and whoever becomes the next head coach of the New York Knicks is what's your plan on developing? I'm pretty confident in the starters. I'm not too worried about uh, essentially, how the coach is going to handle the starters because I feel like that's fine. Like that's not a big issue. It's maybe decreasing the minutes is definitely something, but you need to be able to have guys on the bench that you trust and you can put in the game and are going to do the right things, and that's big. That's going to be key is developing those guys so you could trust them on the court, so you don't have Brunson playing a lot of minutes and especially in regular season. So and you could trust those guys because Indiana trusted some of their younger guys in the postseason, and OKC trusts some of their younger guys in the postseason. You know, they trusted Kason Wallace. So they trusted their guys. When they came in, they weren't going to make mistakes, and that's what the Knicks need to figure out. How do they trust Tyler Kolek more? How do they trust McCullers more? How do they trust Ariel Hukporty more? How do they trust Pacone Dadier? He's probably going to be the biggest because that was their first round pick. And I wasn't crazy about Ariel. I mean, not Ariel, Pacome Dadier. But that was their first round pick. So that's their biggest investment. He's a 6'8" wing, who has a lot of potential skills that could really help us. And wing depth is big. We didn't have anyone we trusted at the wing position that wasn't a starter. So he's going to be big. So, the next coach has to have a good plan on development and having being able to trust those guys. So when JB needs a breather, when OG needs a breather, Cat needs a breather, we can trust you guys to come in and do the job. So that to me is very important. Whoever the next head coach is. And just reading up on some news. Like I said, Jordan Ott's going to be the next head coach of the Suns. So Johnny Bryant is definitely looking like he is probably one of the front runners to be the next head coach of the Knicks. Johnny Bryant, obviously, he's been a assistant that has been very, respected. He did good things with Utah. Big. He did a lot of good stuff in the development of Donovan Mitchell, and then when it came to the Knicks, was a big part of Julius Randle's emergence, and one of the few people that can get to Julius Randle and keep him locked in. And then obviously he went to the Cavs this year and became associate head coach with Kenny Atkinson, and did a really good job of helping that team become the number one seed So he's been really respected, big on player development and that being focused. So all signs point to him being a coach. Like I said, there's going to be. I'm sure they're going to do the due diligence and figure and do their rounds of interviews. But my gut really says that Johnny Bryant is. I mean, he kind of felt like he was groomed to be the next head coach of this New York Knicks team when he was here. But we'll see what happens. And so it definitely feels like he's going to be in line to be the coach. So, but Tom Thibodeau, I've always been, I've been a Tibbs guy. I've supported uh, him for since the start. I've wanted him in previous head coaching opportunities. I've wanted him to be in the Knicks coach for a while, and we got him, and he was like I mentioned before, able to do some tremendous things. Get guys like Julius Randle to play at an All NBA level, able to elevate Jalen Brunson. But we all know it kind of feels like with Tibbs that there's a ceiling, and they're not trusting the younger players. Um, I think sometimes it can get overblown. He has a type. He definitely has a type. You have to have high IQ, and he just has to trust you. And if he has a little bit, if you do not gainer his trust, you're just not going to be able to play. And that's been a thing. And I think he needed to have more trust, especially in this playoffs. He needed to trust some of the young guys more. I mean, the fact that you're playing Delon Wright and Campaign and Landry Shamet. I mean, I just don't think that was going to equate to being a championship level team. And I feel like if he had trusted the younger guys more, I think you can balance both. I really think you can, and I think if he had done that, because I really think they had a good draft. Like I felt like they got Tibbs type guys too, and it just didn't. They didn't get on the court enough, and and I know McCullers had some injuries to deal with, but Porty dealt with some injuries late in the season. But I think someone had mentioned this before in space. I think it was Papalev mentioned this before, um, and he had said that now we can actually envision and like have actually get excited about draft picks because before like I'm obviously I love the draft, so I'm always gonna get excited, but in the back of my head I'm like I'm gonna get excited and then they're not gonna play, you know. Even though I thought the players we had selected, other than Pacome, I know Pacome was a project. Other than Pacome, I'm like, all right, these guys kind of fit the Tibbs mindset. Like I think if obviously second round pick, so I'm not gonna expect the world from them. But these are, I thought Kolick was a top 25 player. McCullers was a first round talent. I know Porty's been in the draft scene for feels like a little bit. So I'm like these guys. I think if they do, if they, I think they're going to be ahead of schedule. I think they can get some run. Wasn't the case. I mean, Kolick had some moments when Brunson was out. You know, Huck played some. Had some moments, but it was just you got to be able to you got to instill trust, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen, and the next coach is going to have to really figure that out and get those guys incorporated. And I think it would happen. I think it would happen. So it allows you to actually be like, okay, like we're going to play a bigger rotation. We're going to see these young guys, actually develop the way we wanted to, and so that gives you hope. That gives you hope, and because I do think they're going to hire a not so much a younger coach, but I think they're going to one of these top assistants who have been around, been lead assistants, those that type of coach. So it gives you hope that all right, they're going to be able to expand, the rotation, and because I think it's going to be big. Those 3 or 4 guys are going to be and really huge in what this Knicks team look. Because I know a lot of people want massive changes, right? You hear KD rumors and Giannis rumors, and yeah, I mean, Giannis can change everything, but that's going to be costly. And KD is 36, 37 years old, and I mean, I love Kevin Durant. He's probably one of my favorite players. It's not my favorite player to watch play basketball. He's arguably the greatest, you know, scorer of all time. But it he how will he be embraced in New York being a Knick? How will he handle that? Is he still that game changing player? Like, we all know he's a great player, but is he someone that can still elevate a team? He struggled. And ever since he left Golden State, it hasn't, he's only had one playoff series win. And obviously, we don't know about the foot, but the foot on the line and all that. But is he still that game changing player that can help elevate a team? And maybe he is, but he hasn't shown it. With these last few stints, in Brooklyn, obviously, and then obviously with the Suns, it hasn't been great. So we'll see what happens. I think for me, I don't mind. The Knicks are kind of limited in what they can do anyway. A trade for KD or Giannis, Giannis especially, it would be borderline, almost near impossible to really maneuver. So I think it's just about developing the younger guys. Maybe getting a piece or two here, some depth on the bench. Maybe getting a point guard that you can trust when Brunson's out. If you don't believe Kolek is that guy, so we'll see. They only have one pick in the second round. I think it's the 50th pick. They would have had two, at least two, but the tampering issues with Brunson eliminated that, and so they lost that pick in the second round. So they only have one pick, only 59 picks in total for the Knicks in the NBA draft. So we'll see. So the biggest, I mean, this might have been their big move. Like, the big move was pivoting from Tom Thibodeau and trying to find the right coach to take them to that next level. Because obviously the East is there for them next year. Boston, obviously, Tatum most likely won't be playing. If till maybe the end of the year, if at all. You have the Cavs are, they'll still be there, but they got things to figure out. Because they got bounced early. Obviously, Indiana Pacers are not going anywhere. Orlando, you got to figure out. And Orlando's in kind of a weird situation. There's a lot of teams that the Bulls, like, obviously the Bucks might not have their best player, and obviously Dame's out with the Achilles. So the East is there, and I feel like that's what they thought this year was. This was our opportunity to get to the finals. We built our team to beat Boston. We should have been able to take care of business versus Indiana, and we did it. And I truly don't feel like they felt like Tibbs is the right guy to take them to the next step. So this is what it's at, and so this is a very important decision for the New York Knicks and their history, and we'll see what happens. But the NBA draft is, let me look at my calendar, is I think 3 weeks from today. 2 days. It is obviously they separate. I think that started last year, right? Or if I could be wrong, but obviously we know Dallas has the number one pick in the draft, and which is still crazy that they won. I mean, it's still crazy that they won the lottery. I still can't believe it. But Spurs are at 2, Philly at 3, Hornets 4, Utah rounds out the top 5. So, but I just wanted to talk about a whole with the draft, because a lot of guys withdrew. So I mean, and the number of guys who I think were like draftable players is down exponential. Like, I cut my list big time. Like, I'm constantly changing my board. I'm about to change it up now again just to get some updated names. But there are a lot of names that we're going to hear especially after like the 40th pick, that you're just like, hmm, I didn't have that guy on my radar. Even guys that, and listen, I'm tapped into the draft, but I know guys who are even more tapped in. Obviously, guys who are actually, you know, at the combines and talking to GMs, and I get some information, but not to the level of some of the guys that I trust, um, that cover this. You're gonna hear names that you're just like, man. And we always, you kind of hear like a couple names that we might hear a bunch of names that you're just like, I did not have him. I just watched a mock, someone who I trust, uh, in the draft space, do a mock draft, and I mean, either yeah, they did a big board, and they're like, yeah, these a lot of these guys, they would probably be two-way guys, the guys I wouldn't have drafted, but because of the amount of guys who withdrew from the class, we're gonna get we're gonna get a lot of guys that you're just like, who? It's going to be that type of draft. Like, but it still, it doesn't mean that the draft's not good. It doesn't mean that you can't get good players. But it's the depth of this draft is definitely not there like it once was. So you have to put that in perspective, because some of those second round picks may not be as valuable as they were, just a few weeks ago. So you're going to hear names that we're just not, you're just going to be like, what? Or if you're in the draft space, you can be like, really? But because so many guys, with NIL, it's truly changed the NBA draft. Because guys are just like, all right, if I'm going to be a second round pick, like, man, like I honestly think I better off just going back to college, getting this money, and some of the numbers you hear, it's insane. Yaxel got with this with what Boogie got. Like a lot of these guys are getting insane numbers. So you're just like, wow. And guys who I felt like were first round picks. Like, and I kind of felt like with some of these guys who were, if you're gonna get first round buzz, I think you probably should stay. But with some of the money, the numbers you hear, it's like it's hard to be like, yeah, pass up on that. Like, so especially if you're back end of the first round, where some of the slots can be $3 million, $2 million, and so school A is saying we'll give you four right now, and then you still have an opportunity to play. You know, you get to play, you get to be as March Madness obviously elevates your brand if you want trying to build a brand, and so there's no rush to go pro. So we're gonna see a lot of names that you're just like, didn't expect that. A lot of people are going to get bumped up to the first round where they're probably not first round picks. But because of that, where you're going to be, just kind of like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that. But I essentially you bump up a lot of guys, because of that. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see, you know, um, how the draft rolls. Um, So, like, for instance, like a guy like Yannick Koenig Niederhauser, like from Penn State, like wasn't really on talked about much, but had a good combine in. Like, he went from, I think at one point, no one talking about him. I didn't really hear much on him, and then to like, yeah, he could be a first round pick, and it's crazy. And now with all the names bouncing out, like I've seen some mock drafts, and they have him in the first round. Like he is a first round pick now. Insane, and he's talented, great run runner, great length, you know, um, really intriguing big, and I think there's a lot of intriguing bigs in this class, Johan Berenger is another one, intriguing, what about, Cogbrenner, like he was someone maybe in that late two range that he could get bumped up to a first round pick. You know, with his ability, to potentially stretch it out. Obviously he was a. It felt like every year he was defensive player of the year in the Big East. Like he was just a game changer on that. So he might get bumped up. Thomas Sorbo, who I'm incredibly high on. I love Thomas Sorbo. I at one point lottery. Like I thought lottery. I still feel about it. Obviously, he's got the foot issue, so he missed time um, at Georgetown. But 7'6" wingspan, like insane. You know, uh, great bounce. He's not overly tall, but he's still 6'9". But the wingspan obviously that helps him a lot. So, you know, he's someone that can get might get bumped up a little bit more because the ability to finish, block shots. Those are still, you know, we saw a little bit of the back to the bigs. We saw the 2-man big lineups. A lot of teams going. Maxime Renaud, another one. A guy who could shoot it. Block shots. His. I remember talking to my guy Jay. And I'm like, yo, he might not be, he ain't gonna be a second round pick no more. He gonna be, potentially, back in the lottery or at least top 20. His stock has risen tremendously. You know, he was 7'2", could shoot it. Like those guys are valuable. Pick and pop guy, like, so there's a lot of intriguing bigs. I wish the Knicks had a first round pick. Obviously, you really can't get into the first round pick with all the apron stuff. But there's going to be guys interested. I'm interested in like Nick Clifford. A guy who's an older prospect. Obviously played a lot of basketball. Just a smart player. Where does he go? Are we still going to factor in the age stuff, or are we just going to be like, we plug him in, and he's going to be an instant contributor? He's interesting where he can go. He's kind of range. Carter Bryant to me is another one where he has a wide range because it's all predicated on what you think. What do you think his potential is? Because his potential, he has one of the bigger upsides. There's some people think that he can be a potential star. He has all the measurables of what you want in a wing, right? 6'8", can do a little bit of everything. Kind of should have played more Arizona. That was kind of weird. How they kind of handle that, but he could shoot. Solid defender. Good things he can do. And there's some people who said, man, they think he could be something greater than where he can go. Like there's potential all-star level. I don't know if I see that. Um, but I think I heard someone yesterday say that he could be like an OG Anunoby type. I don't know if he's that level, that type of player. I don't know if he'll be that type of defender, but he has the tools to be that type of player. So his range is there. But we're gonna see like Cedric. I mean Cedric Howard. His rise has been insane. Great story too. I think he was D3. They go to Washington State, and then he was committed to Duke, and I was excited about him being a Duke Blue Devil, and then he killed it in the combine. 6'8" frame. I think he had like a 7. What was his wingspan? It was something like that, like 7'2". It was an insane wingspan. Like he's and he turned down Duke. He's staying in the draft because he went from another guy out of nowhere. Not really. I heard a few people that really liked him. I think like Raphael Barlow liked him a lot. Or James, one of the Barlows. Shout out to them because they give very one of the better draft podcasters in this space in the world. I say in the world, but they had him high. But most people, second round, they're like potential guy. But he rose up big time. Only played 6 games this year. Dealt with some injuries, but he has all the tools you want, to be he rose the way like Jalen Williams rose a few years back, where it's kind of like you see the tip, but then like boom, skyrocketed, and now he's in lottery buzz. And someone I've heard a lot of people that are really high on him. and so he has a range where, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, you know, top 10, at this rate. So, Kasparis Giaconis, from Illinois. I think at one point people were saying, does he go three? Would he be? Is he the third guy? Like, is he the third man? So like that was at one point, but I think his his stuff as he's cooled down a bit. I think one of the biggest issues is his that first step. Can he be able to take guys off the dribble? I think people are really concerned about his be able to create a shot and stuff. So he's probably fallen down a little, but I still think he's a lottery pick though. I still think he's probably in that 10 to more of that 10 to lottery, after a little bit after lottery, in that 10 to 16 range. I think he goes more closer to 10 than I think 16. So, but yeah, there's going to be a bunch of names. I mean, I love Adu Thero. I think he's super underrated. I think if you put it together, you can get yourself a really good player in him. I think he's lower. I've seen a lot of mocks where he's like back end of the first into the second. I like him probably more than most. I think he's more. I would take him in that 15 to 20 range. Honestly, I think he's that type of player. I think you're gonna get a really good one. He's not too much. Maybe not the shooter like Coward is. Definitely, maybe not close, but a lot of the same traits as Cedric Coward as far as the build, the strength. He has a 7'4" wingspan, same size. If he can improve on the shot, I think he can be he could be a good player. So there's going to be a lot of names that you're not going to be familiar. I think Chaz Lanier, another guy, kind of similar to the guy he replaced at Tennessee and don't connect, kind of that same story. But no, obviously it doesn't have the same size as Connect, but he did great at the combine, shooting the ball well, and I think he's that type of player that teams want. That type of can create his shot too, So I think he's someone that I like a lot, and I think might go a little bit higher than people are. I loved Cam Jones. I thought I had him like top 20, 25 at one point. I think he definitely uh, didn't didn't impress well at the combine. I think he had a foot injury that kind of cost him too. So I think he's going to drop a little bit. Probably be in that mid second round range where I thought maybe at one point top 25 was a realistic option for him. But yeah, there's a lot of names on the draft that international guys that are very interesting too. Uh, that that I'm very see where they go. Um, Very interested to see where they go. I know the Hanson Yang guy. He's someone that's people are now starting to think, okay, maybe he can play. Maybe he can play in the NBA. He did had a really good turnout at the combine and showed probably a little bit better foot speed than we probably thought. So obviously didn't play with the greatest competition. I think he played in the I forgot the name of the league he played in China, but he showed a little bit. Showed a little. It was solid in the combine. So there's a very interesting names, and who's the guy I'm thinking about from uh not man, I had a name, Amari Williams too, very interesting prospect. The Knicks, and I talked about him a little bit on Space earlier. The Knicks, that's a potential guy they could target. Another big body guy, 265, 270. Like he's a brute. Another interesting big. I'm very interested in Eric Dixon. Eric Dixon. If you just look at his, you just look at the back, you just look at his stats, and you're just like, wow, impressive. 3 level type of guy, can score mid range, can shoot the three, has range too. Like he could shoot it for a guy that size. You know, he has range, but he's defensively he's gonna struggle. So like he's someone that I want to love. I actually do love. I love his game, but I just don't know if it translates. If it's gonna translate at the next level, unless he can show he could be a catch and shoot 3 point shooter, and he could do that effectively, then yeah. But I could see I could see potentially that being, him having trouble at the next level. So Tamar Bates is another guy I like. I really love Tamar. I think he's like a microwave scorer, like someone that just can score at any level. He's someone I like a lot too. Zion James too, another one who leveled up everywhere he went. Tulane, Duke, like he was a big reason why Duke was a Final Four type of team. Just a bull. Like he kind of gives me like Lou Dort vibes. That type of player. Like he's an interesting guy. Micah Peavy, there we go. Micah Peavy. I love Micah Peavy. I think he's vastly underrated. Has the front. He's a little bit an older guy, but he could shoot. He could shoot, man. I think he's someone that's can defend a little bit, can shoot the ball. Um, he's someone that could potentially be a steal somewhere in the second round. So those are just some names. I'll have more as the draft gets closer and closer. I'll be doing, I'll be trying to do like groups and just talk about them a little bit more, just what I've been hearing. But draft is slowly approaching, 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away from the draft. So very looking forward to that. Looking forward to that. Uh, Finals. We have the NBA Finals tomorrow. OKC versus the Indiana Pacers. Like I said, it kind of hurts that because felt like the Knicks could have possibly been in it, but they're not. Hopefully we figure that out so we're in this position next year. But OKC, I'm going to pick OKC in 5 games. I think their depth, their ability to defend at the wing position, switchability. Obviously, they have SGA, who is a dynamic scorer. Their size, I think those things help them and neutralize Indiana. I don't think they're going to turn the ball over the way like the Knicks did and wreak havoc on those turnovers. I think the OKC controls the pace and takes care of business. I think they're the better team. I think they've just been on an absolute run. Best team in the league essentially all year. I think they finish it off and do the thing and win their first NBA championship in Oklahoma City Thunder history. I know. And I think SGA wins Finals MVP and has maybe one of the best seasons of all time. To win I think he won the scoring title, right? I think he's a scoring champion, NBA MVP, won the conference finals MVP, and then a finals MVP and a championship. That's a hell of a year. That could go down as one of the best seasons in NBA history by a player. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting time. And like I said, this is going to be an explosive off season. A lot to talk about. I am going to try. Work has been crazy, but I am going to try to do a lot more shows before work. Even if it's 20 minutes, half hour, we're going to do a lot more. Going to be more consistent. Now that I can, got the work schedule all tightened up, going to talk some more draft stuff as 3 weeks out. I'm going to try to get as much draft content out as possible. We'll see who the next New York Knicks head coach will be. We'll see Kevin Durant rumors, Giannis rumors, so many rumors about players potentially on the move. We'll keep you lock and loaded. But on that note, be well, be safe, take care. Off the Ball Podcast. Make sure to follow on YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. Make sure to follow me on X, Off the Ball Pod. Make sure to follow me on Twitch. Make sure to follow me on Facebook, on TikTok, Off the Ball Pod. I think I'm Chris OTB, but all the links are in my link tree. I'll leave that in the description. But appreciate everyone. Be well, be safe. Peace out.